So let's pick up where we left off. Let's quickly recap on the points I was making with the therapy and the inductions. Now, something that confused me as a hypnotist when I was very, very young was, what is therapy? What do you actually say? How is it possible that I can say words, tell stories, create imagery, and have my client quit smoking after 50 years of it being a part of their life? How can I say a couple of words and have someone overcome a major snake phobia or an addiction to drugs, or have the confidence to finally let go of the toxic relationship in it? Okay. Now, I've spent many, many years racking my brain trying to figure that out. Thinking, what is the best? Then I realized something really, really important. It wasn't what I was saying, and it never will be. It's never what you'll say, and it never will be. It's the time that you say these things. The only way these therapy suggestions, and this is one of many different ways you can do therapy, will have an effect, is if the conscious mind no longer interferes. Does that make sense? Which is the purpose of hypnosis. In order to change a behavior, a thought, a conclusion, an addiction, a habit, you can only do that at an unconscious level. Only. Someone can talk to you consciously all day long and it won't change a thing. We all learn, who's heard we all learn unconsciously first? All habits, beliefs, traits, everything you are happens unconsciously first, because that's where you learn. Okay? Which means that if that's where you learn, you actually learn your bad habits. You learn your problems. You learn your addictions. So if that's the place you learn them, why would you go anywhere else to try and solve them? So I think if that's where the origins of a problem begin, you go back to the origins to destroy it. Does that make sense? So with that in mind, yes, we still got to give you some context of therapy, but some of the best therapy you can do, and this is just an idea hopefully we get to play with, is get them into a trance and just be quiet. Just let them sit in it. Because believe it or not, every time you talk while a client's in trance, you disturb it. Who's ever tried to buy something and had a salesman oversell you the product? Okay, who's had that before? And what do? You walk away without it. Okay, I've been to the point where I was buying a new car, and I went in and said, I want it this color, this size, make sure it's got 4 wheels, okay, make sure it does this, I want this, this, and this. I'm gonna pay cash, I'm ready. And then 2 hours later, he's still trying to sell it to me. Still trying to say, I'll do this for you, have this. That's the one I want. I'm ready to take it. No, but I can do this for you. I don't, forget it. And just walked away and didn't buy it. The same thing can happen with your trance. We talked before about the TVS, the trance variational search. Every time you talk, at a crucial point of your interaction, you disturb it. In the context of therapy, let's say you're silent for a while and your client is envisioning something. They're seeing symbols, they're seeing imagery. And they're about to connect with this imagery, and they're about to solve the biggest problem in their life, and you say something that draws them away from it, distracts their attention. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do I know when to talk and when not to talk? Okay, this is something that you'll never be able to answer, but you play with it accordingly. And the best way to get around that is to spend a lot of time pausing, not too much talking. So I like to do with therapy, we did a little bit of this with Crystal yesterday. I talk for a little bit, then let her do her thing. Talk for a little bit more, do her thing. Talk for a little bit more, let her do her thing. To the point where you can start to tell, when you get enough experience with this, you can actually tell when your client's doing the right thing and the wrong thing in trance based on what you can see with your unconscious moments. And you address that accordingly. So therapy, don't always think I've got to be talking. Don't always think I've got to be doing my techniques. I don't have to be telling my stories. They are a part of it, but try some silence every now and then. You'd be surprised at what that actually does. Just sitting in a space where there's no thoughts is a general reaction to sitting in silence. That's enough where people get clarity on things. Sounds strange, but it's not the words that you're saying. It's not the therapy that changes people. It's the trance that changes people. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you find that your clients are waking up out of trance and they haven't been therapized, if you will, it might have been because you've done too much. Okay. If you read the transcripts of Dr. Milton Erickson, people look at the transcripts, especially at the stages of therapy, and he was hardly saying anything. And he's dealing with psychopaths and psychotics and people that were unhypnotizable and were against therapy. He was what he called, I was stuck with all the leftovers. And people read the transcripts trying to find out how did he fix that problem? How did he fix that addiction? Okay, there's I don't know if you can see it anymore. There was a video of Dr. Milton Erickson dealing with a lady that had control issues. Okay, and he's talking to the session. He put her in trance within like 2 seconds, as he normally does. Doesn't say much. And she went into this deep trance. One of her hands started to lift by itself. Okay, that's a normal hypnotic phenomenon, arm levitation. And she's saying, I still feel like I'm out of control. So he pushed that hand down, lifted her other hand. She was cured. What does that have to do with fixing a problem? And it still stumps people today. Total silence, but that little suggestion of taking from one hand to the other, you can hear the metaphor in that, was enough where she was totally cured. There was no long-winded therapy. There was no long-winded stories. Yes, he did tell a lot of stories as well. There was no long-winded walk down the beach, find a shell, that shell will mean something to you, connect with it, it's got a name written on it, what's the name say, then walk down to that beach and there's a treasure chest, then go in the ocean, have a swim. None of that. It was more of a non-verbal suggestion, it was more of a non-verbal connection that he had with this person, just in that context. Okay, so this little side note, I think they're really important. So when we get into some therapy today, just like we paused between your suggestions, start to pause in your therapy as well. Throw a little bit out there, let them deal with it accordingly. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions just on that little intermission before we get into the next stage? Yes?
I would imagine some people find the silence intimidating and would open their eyes. Mm-hmm. Was that a situation?
No, you'll probably find that your clients will stay deeper in trance. If you talk too much, they'll open their eyes because you disturb it. Okay? At a conscious level, it seems weird. Okay, but at an unconscious level, it's like everything's in reverse. What we think is repetitious is perfect for them. What we think is too much is perfect for them. So you've got to play with that accordingly. But again, you adjust it to your clients, what your client needs. If you listen carefully enough through the hypnotic interview, they'll tell you how they need to be fixed and what needs to happen at that point. Okay? Any other questions?
Do you reference the hypnotic interview in the therapeutic talk?
As in the information I found out? Yeah, absolutely. If I find some key points in the hypnotic interview that are in a positive nature, you better believe I'm going to add that as my suggestion. So if my client, through explaining the problem, says, you know what, I just want to feel unstuck in the world, almost like a small metaphor, I'm going to use that. So that's it, you're in trance now, feeling unstuck in the world. Now what that means to me, I don't know, but it means something to them because they've said it. So yeah, definitely want to reference that. Okay. Saves me thinking of the suggestions for them. Just let them tell you and just repeat it back to them. Any other questions, folks? No? Okay. So, before we get into groups, let's look at the next part. Okay, so we can start to pull all this together. Let's look at testing. What do we mean by testing? Why would we want to test a client? What's its purpose, do we think? Why is it so crucial to your success and longevity as a hypnotist?
You know if you solve the problem.
That's it. So you know if you solve the problem or not. Or what you've missed. Or if you're on the right track. Yeah. Okay? So even though testing's at the end of the PHITTR formula, I like to test everywhere. Because I don't know about you, I can't read my client's mind. I wish I could. So the next best thing is to ask my client what's happening, how are they feeling, what are they experiencing. Tell me, give me feedback. Okay? So as an example, I might be priming my client saying everything's going to be fantastic, I'll look after you, it's safe. Do the hypnotic interview, drill down into the problem, find the root cause as it were.